Helene, what has been the response in the Middle East in the days since the U.S. killed Soleimani?
The response since the U.S. killed Soleimani in the Middle East has been huge. In Iran, where protesters had 2 weeks ago been protesting against the regime, they have now united, apparently, behind the regime and have turned their ire on the United States. You're seeing these familiar views of American flags being burned in the streets. This massive outpouring of mourners. It's certainly ramped up the anti-American sentiment in Iran. Meanwhile, in Baghdad, you're seeing similar outpourings of grief, but that's been accompanied by the Iraqi parliament voting unanimously this morning to expel the United States from Iraq. They didn't put forth a timeline for withdrawal, so there's still some wiggle room there. But particularly the Shiites in the Iraqi government are very, very angry at the United States right now. You have to understand that Iraq is made up of three very distinct groups: Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds, but it is predominantly Shiite. Iran is Shiite as well, and the Iraqi government is very close to Iran. The Shiites in Iraq are particularly close to General Soleimani and view him in many ways as one of their own. They're also upset, though, because this was a targeted killing in their country.
Right.
So it's in much the same way that if something like this happened in the United States government would be upset. That's another reason why the Iraqi government is so angry.
Helene, can Iraq and its legislature do that? Can they kick the U.S. troops out of the country?
They can. Iraq can say you are no longer welcome there. Remember, we are there at the invitation of the Iraqi government, ostensibly to fight the Islamic State. That battle is largely over. So, yes, the Iraqi government can kick the United States military out of Iraq. Whether they do or not, whether this is posturing, I don't know yet. Every couple of hours, you see something else. Right after the Iraqi parliament voted, we saw the Pentagon announce that it was suspending the anti-ISIS coalition effort in Iraq. There are 4,000 American troops who've been there, and that the troops who are in Iraq will be focused on protecting the American citizens who are still in the country, but who are being advised to leave as soon as possible. It's like 2013 all over again when the Obama administration ended combat and pulled troops out of Iraq, and you saw the rise of ISIS. Because once the United States is gone and out of the country, these other factions are given more room to maneuver and more room to thrive. And so you can sort of see how these events could lead to a resurgence of ISIS if the ground becomes clear for them to move around more freely.
And wasn't Soleimani also leading an Iranian militia that was an enemy of ISIS?
Yes, there was a de facto cooperation between Soleimani and the United States in the fight against ISIS. They were both opposed to ISIS, and they were both fighting ISIS on the same turf.
Right, which would have made, in a very narrow and complicated way, Soleimani an ally in our fight against ISIS, even though he's our enemy in many other respects.
He was an ally in our fight against ISIS. That is correct.
Helene, the ripple effects of all of this are very complicated, but I wonder if there's a simple way of thinking about this, which is that after all these months of provocation and response between the U.S. and Iran, that President Trump felt it was time for the U.S. to remind Iran that at the end of the day, we are the military superpower and our advantages over them are extraordinary and represent the kind of deterrent that means whatever Iran's ultimate response to this is, it will not be all that severe. That in a sense, we just called Iran's bluff.
That would work if we hadn't started this to begin with by pulling out of the Iranian nuclear deal, which was signed in 2015 under the Obama administration and which was hated by President Trump and many Republicans.
I have been in business a long time. I know deal making. And let me tell you, this deal is catastrophic for America, for Israel, and for the whole of the Middle East.
They viewed it as too weak and said that it gave Iran rewards, as it did by lifting sanctions, for stopping their uranium enrichment, but did not address Iran's misbehavior, and this is the General Soleimani-type misbehavior, in other areas.
The problem here is fundamental. We've rewarded the world's leading state sponsor of terror with $150 billion, and we received absolutely nothing in return.
When we pulled out of the nuclear deal, we reimposed sanctions on Iran and put even stiffer sanctions on the country. We started to punish companies and basically told the world, you either do business with Iran or you do business with America. And of course, most of the world chose America. That had the result of completely putting a strangle on the Iranian economy. And that is kind of what has led to the Iranian regime then escalating attacks against the United States, because this is a hardline regime and they clearly believe that if they're hurting, they're going to pull the United States down into the mud with them.
But doesn't it still stand to reason that if that is the situation that we are in a post-nuclear deal world, where Iran decides that the only way that it can operate is with attacks through militias that it organizes against the U.S., that taking out a person like Soleimani is a reasonable option given our superiority over Iran? We have nuclear weapons. They do not. We have superpower military capabilities. They do not. That doesn't leave them with a whole lot of options, does it?
You know, back in the 80s, there was this tanker war where Iran, Iraq, and the U.S. were all going after each other. And it was, they made the Persian Gulf like an impossible place, and the price of oil went way up. And it ended up with the United States, by mistake, shooting down an Iranian passenger jet.
Wow.
And Iran made a lot of noise after that happened, and then they quieted down. So there's precedent for that. But I think it's easily as much of a chance that they don't quiet. Iran has a whole lot of options to make us hurt. Certainly, the United States is much better equipped, but unless we're actually suggesting that we're going to drop a nuclear bomb on downtown Tehran, it's never that easy once you get into a conventional war. So we went to war in Iraq, which lasted years and which we're still seeing some of the consequences from. A war with Iran would be so much worse than any kind of war with Iraq. They're way more sophisticated than Iraq ever was. They have the ability to make it hurt. So the question can be phrased as, is the United States willing to give up the blood and treasure it would take to subdue Iran? Which of course it could, but it's going to cost us something. So are we willing to pay that fee?
Helene, thank you. Thank you for talking to us on a Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
For everything. We appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
On Sunday, Iran's leaders and their allies began to openly discuss plans for retaliation against the United States, saying that they would target America's military bases and its soldiers. In an interview with CNN, a high-level advisor to Iran's supreme leader said, quote, "The only thing that can end this period of war is for the Americans to receive a blow that is equal to the blow that they have inflicted." On Twitter, President Trump warned Iran against such a response, writing, quote, "They attacked us, and we hit back. If they attack again, which I would strongly advise them not to do, we will hit them harder than they have ever been hit before." We'll be right back.
Third Love is a bra and underwear company that believes that everybody deserves a perfect fit. That's why they've donated over $20 million worth of bras to women in need. And with more than 80 sizes, including half cups, Third Love is on a mission to help every woman feel comfortable and confident, inside and out. Go to thirdlove.com/daily to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/daily for 15% off.
Here's what else you need to know today.
Look, it was a targeted attack on a government official, a high-ranking military official for the government of Iran. And what it's done has moved this country closer to war. We are not safer today than we were before Donald Trump acted.
In interviews on Sunday, the leading Democratic candidates for president, including Senator Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete Buttigieg on CNN, challenged the Trump administration's rationale for killing General Soleimani and predicted that it could backfire on the U.S.
Now, let's be clear. Qasem Soleimani was a bad figure. He has American blood on his hands. None of us should shed a tear for his death. But just because he deserved it doesn't mean it was the right strategic move. This is about consequences.
In a statement, former Vice President Joe Biden said that the president, quote, just tossed a stick of dynamite into a tinderbox. And Senator Bernie Sanders, at a campaign stop, accused the president of violating his campaign pledge.
Trump promised to end endless wars. Tragically, his actions now put us on the path to another war, potentially one that could be even worse than before.
And Australia's government said that it would deploy the country's military to fight a set of catastrophic fires that have already burned more than 12 million acres, an area larger than Switzerland, killed at least 24 people, and killed or injured hundreds of millions of animals. The Times reports that the fires are now so large and hot that they are creating their own weather patterns, further fueling the blazes. That's it for the Daily. I'm Michael Barbaro. See you tomorrow.
Hi, this is Pamela Paul, editor of the New York Times Book Review and host of the Book Review podcast. I want to tell you about a new series of events called Book Review Live. The first one is happening the evening of January 14th at the Times Center in New York City. We'll be welcoming Cheryl Wu Dunn and my colleague Nick Kristof to talk about their new book, Tightrope: Americans Reaching for Hope. The book is about the disintegration of America's working class. We'll dig deeper into the themes of Tightrope with my colleague Andrew Ross Sorkin, the founder of DealBook. You can buy tickets at nytimes.com/bookreviewlive. Hope to see you there.